Right on cue.
And speaking of supermodels,
Right on cue.
Brian Blessing.
Yeah, here we go. Boy, poor Brian didn't even know the conversation we just had getting into this. And we say, good morning. Welcome to rawmike.richards.com. Brian Blessings.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Well, we just did a reenactment of what it's like for Tom Brady to talk in front of Gronk while they're playing the Buffalo Bills and bragging about how on the offshore they bet on winning over 11 and a half games in the season because of playing teams like that. How insulting would that be upon hearing this conversation if you're a Buffalo Bill, Brian? This is what I'm saying.
Well, no. I mean, I'm in Las Vegas, and I've said since this whole thing got put together, and everybody would look at me, I said, I would bet everything I own when New England plays in Buffalo that Rob Gronkowski will score a touchdown because he's from East Aurora, right up the street from the stadium. And literally every time Gronkowski comes back to Buffalo, I mean, he owns the joint. I mean, the funny thing is they actually play them tough at times. They can't get done. The division is, that whole Patriots thing. I mean, love them, hate them, whatever, respect everything they've done. But it is the luxury of them knowing what they're doing, but also where they reside, that basically the odds are 80% that they're going to have to win 2 games to get to the Super Bowl every year. Wouldn't every team in the NFL do a cartwheel for that?
Yeah, exactly. And Brian, speaking of things like numbers. So, if you're looking at futures, for instance, and you see it's a decimal wise, it's a 5.5, 5.5 for them to win a Super Bowl. It's like 3.5, I believe, for the AFC to win the conference. But if we're looking for true value this year in the NFL, what team are you going to find that with? Are you looking at teams like Oakland, even though we just mentioned the Raiders have they got a tough schedule, but is there a team like, for instance, with Eric Decker going to Tennessee, are we looking at a Marcus Mariota team that maybe it's undervalued in what the Titans can do this year? Where do you see value in the NFL this year, Brian?
The crazy thing, and I think we had done this maybe about a month ago, and I had the very same discussion, in fact, on another show in Toronto last night. The craziest thing, and it will sound horrific, that this is not a homer deal, just because of perception. The Bills opened at 6. The season win total is at 6.5. And I got to be honest with you, I think they got better. I think it's addition by subtraction with McDermott in there running the show. On defense, they basically added 3 number 1 picks. Reggie Ragland got hurt and never played it down last year from Alabama, and he was their best player in camp. Shaq Lawson, the defensive end, he missed 2/3 of the season. They were running a ridiculous 3-4 system when their personnel says they should run a 4-3. I think they've actually gotten better, and I think that's a team that can win 8 games.
That's interesting. It's something we'll talk about more as we get closer to the season and training camp and so forth. But let's talk about some Golden Knights hockey because we're really excited for this expansion draft. I know you guys are too. Brian, when you see the lists, and we all see the lists that are out there right now, and George McVie and his management team have been looking through these mock drafts for a while. Well, it's finally solidified. What sort of impression do you have right off the top at some of the players that are available to the Golden Knights when they get a chance to draft them tomorrow?
When the list came out Friday, and the long story of this has been going on 3 years out here. I did a mock draft 2 years ago on Easter weekend, and I had Bickle and Teravainen from Chicago on the list. They got traded to Carolina 3 weeks later. I said I will never do this again, and I haven't because even now it is a Rubik's cube, and you're looking at it and you're throwing darts. The biggest developments here was Friday when Montreal made what was a solid hockey trade with Tampa Bay. Okay, both teams got something good out of that. Then they threw Bellew away for a 3rd-round pick. It was known league-wide that GMs had to factor in, we're in a buyer's market, we're not getting quality return on anything we're unloading for fear of losing an asset for nothing. They'd also have to then factor in the second player that they would actually lose to Las Vegas. 29 teams said, we're just going to deal with George McPhee heads up. This was manna from heaven for the Golden Knights. I think they walk out of this with probably 5 who knows, maybe 6 number ones spread out over the next 3 years. And you look at some of the teams that their exposed list, and you just look at it and go, that's not right. And instantly when you see that, you say a deal has been cut there.
Well, Brian, by the way, we should tell people we're talking to Brian Blessings. He's host of Sportsbook Radio and the Vegas Hockey Hotline on AM 1400 in Las Vegas. Brian, the one point that I brought up earlier today on the show was, they also, and this is the Golden Knights I'm talking about, have a unique, I don't know if it's problematic, I'm not sure how I look at it. You talk about a Rubik's Cube. When you have a team, a franchise that's based in a city where a lot of its audience and fluctuation is based on the tourist industry, so it's almost transient at times. Is this one of those teams where they're going to actually market to a lot of out-of-town locations? Because a big part of that going through the turnstiles has to be those that are visiting the city because it is a tourist attraction versus how much you actually spend on marketing to people who live there. Is it a 50-50 proposition? How are they going to go about marketing?
It's not even close. I'll go back 2 years ago. There was an article in the Toronto Star, and they're saying, they gave a hockey team to a city with a population of 600,000. Okay, there are 3 million people live in this valley. That would be akin to saying that the 900,000 people that live in Mississauga never go to the Air Canada Center. They sold the season tickets in a heartbeat. And plan D is that people will be able to come in from out of town to see their team. You've got Southern California, people would drive in. But the bottom line is locals will be the lion's share of people going to these games. You said it's transient. These are people that are living here now that have a hockey background, and there will be community pride because it's the first pro team. And then plan G is if 600 tickets 3 years from now are available on a Tuesday night when Columbus is here, there are 30,000 people walking around in a 1.5-mile square radius of the arena looking for something to do. And at any given moment, 4,000 or 5,000 of those people are Canadian. It is going to work, and the building will be full.
Yeah, it certainly will, or at least it appears to be on the right track. I look forward to our trip down there this year sometime. We'll get to that more in a bit. Shane Doan yesterday was told by Phoenix or Arizona Coyotes management that he will not be offered a contract this upcoming season. He's one of the stand-up captains of the NHL, 21 years in the same organization. There is some talk that he wants to stay on the West Coast. I threw out this, and I throw it out to you as well, Brian Blessing. Does Shane Doan make sense to go to the Las Vegas franchise, the Vegas Golden Knights, and be that captain in place for the first year where there's going to be a lot of chaos around, and you have a guy that's almost borderline Hall of Famer wanting to stay in the area? Does that make sense to you?
It doesn't to me.
Okay.
Because Shane Doan deserves a shot to win a Stanley Cup. Would he be valuable stopgap? Everything you just said. There's not you tell me one person around the NHL can say a bad thing about Shane Doan.
Yeah.
I don't think they exist. Frankly, if he's going to play again, do yourself a favor. You've been a good soldier for all these years. Go somewhere and give yourself a chance to win a Stanley Cup.
Well, Brian, the movable parts that they're going to have with this franchise on, those that they want to see on a marquee, I guess to a degree, but I assume it's probably outweighed, at least for George McPhee, on, those movable assets, so what they can get. And this is an NHL now where, it's such a tight league. I know a lot of people talk about parity in different leagues. Well, sometimes to me it's more about middle ground because sometimes it's not the best that sport has to offer. But I think on a nightly basis, now, how often? We love to gamble. Obviously, we bet like hell on this show. But I'm afraid of hockey because hockey is goddamn tough to gamble on a nightly basis simply because the competition is so tough. So that being said, with the Golden Knights, how long is it realistically before they can be, a bubble team? Like, do they even think that way, or is that so far away that's not a concern right now?
On the first point, I would say to you, I'm completely of the opposite mindset because we follow and know the sport. I think it's one of the few sports where there are chinks in the armor from the odds makers and you find soft numbers and then totals they don't take into account that backup goalies are playing, or a team is playing the third game in 4 nights. I think you do find some soft numbers in hockey. The other aspect of it, the expansion rules are there, and the key is for McPhee not to take the bait. And this is not his first rodeo. He could, if you look at the names that are out there now, I mean, they could get a team right out of the gate and literally maybe by the end of February be within 6-7 points of 8th in the West. But at what price? If you do that, you set yourself back a decade. You get in that never-ending cesspool of being 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, always drafting mid-first round and never getting out of that cesspool. He has an opportunity. And the reality of it is George McPhee cannot say this. He's got to say all the right things, but he sees it. I mean, look, Sidney Crosby just won his second cup back-to-back cups. Number 1 pick. Patrick Kane, number 1 pick. Oilers, McDavid, number 1 pick. Leafs turn it around seemingly overnight with Matthews. And I'm telling you, beware the Buffalo Sabres. You got Eichel with a stone in his shoe, and he is going to make a real statement, missed 22 games last year, or maybe they made the playoffs last year. The moral of the story is those were teams that on purpose, many of them, tore it down to get horrible, to get elite players, to build a future. McPhee's starting from scratch. He doesn't have to tank, if you want to use the word. He doesn't have to bottom out. He's there. So if he gets all these number ones, the key is save as much cap space as you possibly can. Then you win deals at the trade deadline. Then you draft well. You spread those ones out over time so they're not all getting the big payday. Their entry-level contract runs out at the same time. And then, oh, by the way, 2 years from now, when the core is there, then you spend the money on free agency. I think in 3 years, it is a solid contending playoff team. And maybe not too long after that, it's a real, serious, dangerous hockey team.
Interesting. I totally agree with stockpiling. I'll go one step further, Brian. I could see George McPhee drafting guys like Fleury, Plekanec, and moving them, maybe a Peter Mrazek. You know, if somebody comes up, for example, Detroit Red Wings are a very good example. They're looking for a puck-moving defenseman. If Vegas picks up something Detroit wants, Detroit gives them prospects back, and Detroit gets that pick from Vegas. I think we're going to see a lot of wheeling and dealing in the next couple of days.
I would envision 30 guys are announced tomorrow night. 6 to 8 of them are moved instantly. I mean, by Friday, they're gone. 2 years from now, 60 to 70% of these guys will not be here. This is all about laying the bricks and build something moving forward. Many teams, these deals that have been cut, they've basically seen the list. McPhee was brilliant, I will say. He imposed a deadline last night, 9 o'clock. I'm not answering the phone. So he imposed his own trade deadline. And down the road, we'll find out how did that pan out, and did it back some teams into a corner, and how beneficial was that maneuver. And I just believe he's going to pick 4 or 5 guys on a list that he wasn't even looking cross-eyed at, but he got a call from somebody, and you look at some of the surprise names that are on a list, and they're saying, okay, you get these guys if you take that guy and then ship him to me, plus picks and prospects. This is absolute. I don't know how, even with the full year of preparation with the hockey department, 72 hours, this clock is ticking real fast. The amazing thing, McPhee says he plans on being done with this tonight and sleeping on it. I mean, that's why I'm like, okay. I mean, they believe they're that well prepared for this. It is going to be, amazing. The one thing I'm not thrilled about, and I posed the question back to you guys. I'm a hockey nut. I'm sorry. The NHL awards, the AllStar Game. Yeah. That stuff does nothing for me. No. I think the league should have done a 90-minute, 2-hour expansion show.
Yes.
Instead of cramming 3 segments of, hey, here's 10 guys for Vegas. Hey, here's 10. I think the hockey world would have watched this. Who are we losing? Who did they get? What does that team now look like? I think it should have been a standalone deal instead of squeezing it into bad music and bad jokes.
Well, it's funny because we did actually talk about that this morning, including all-star games and just sort of the what has turned into I don't know. I guess it's attractive to the children, like kids in those local markets that show up and watch some of the gimmicky stuff. It just doesn't really ring true of hockey. But I'll be honest, for me, Brian, almost any all-star format is a real push for me. I don't have a huge interest in it. Most of the sports, except for probably Major League Baseball, aren't even played the way the game is actually coached or taught or played. So I can't watch them.
I'm a purist, and I'm, okay, if I'm becoming the grumpy old curmudgeon, so be it. But, I mean, okay, great. An 8-year-old thought that was cool. God bless. But, I mean, it is such a horrific representation of what the beauty of the game is. So it's a made-for-TV gong show. But to take this event and cram it into another made-for-TV gong show, I just think they missed the boat. I honestly believe this was something that the hockey world would have paid attention to. And frankly, I know I would be at the mindset, and I know people that are of this mindset that I know around the country. It's like, I'll read about it on Twitter, or I'll find out about it the next day, because I don't want to watch the awards. I don't want to watch that, but I don't want to choke down the awards.
Yeah, no, totally agree, and it makes a lot of sense, and I think it was a missed opportunity. They could have really productioned it up and had some sort of big presentation with it. One final question from me, Brian, before we say goodbye for now. Canada celebrates their 150th birthday coming up in July. I know you lived in Buffalo for many years, so Canada was definitely part of your makeup where you live, geographically speaking. I want you to tell me right now your favorite all-time either Canadian musician or Canadian band, because I know you're a big music guy.
I can answer both questions. All-time individual is Burton Cummings, the Guess Who, by a country mile. I actually went, I believe it was 1983. It was the Guess Who's first reunion tour after many years of being broken up. It was in Toronto. It was amazing, but one of the best things I've ever seen. Well, the best concert I ever saw, I was 14 years old. I saw The Who do the Tommy Tour at the Cap Center in Landover, Maryland. And at 14, I said, I'll never see anything better than that. And I didn't, other than the next 6 times I saw The Who. then the Guess Who was clearly a number 2 for me. And one of the best things I ever saw was Burton Cummings solo in a place called the Tralfamadore in Buffalo that held about 400 people.
Wow.
And if you can imagine Burton Cummings for 2 hours at the piano, it was amazing. So it's the Guess Who by a good margin.
And Burton Cummings is funny too. He's a funny guy.
Oh, that was a night I'll never forget. And just amazing. They are I don't know why. I mean, they are, I think also, not only are they spectacular, I think maybe they're one of the most underrated bands in history.
Well, now you worked at GR55. Is that correct?
No, I worked at Channel 4 on television in Buffalo, and then did the Sabres games on Empire Sports.
So you never did, because there was an influence, when I grew up as a kid, and I really, I wanted to be a goalie, so I never really thought about any sort of career. I mean, why would I? I mean, it's obvious that I was going to be in the NHL. So, but listening to late night radio and radio out of the GR55 thing, was it Tom Otto? John Otto, who did the Desperate and Dateless. It was just hysterical. And then they had the legendary Brother Shane on GR55. You're talking to the jock. He had the strangest presence.
I actually know Brother Shane's real name.
Oh! He was what I saw. He go, what is it?
You would get this in a million years. Max Gibson.
Oh, Max Gibson. That's hilarious.
And he came up with Brother Shane on the big dick of the Queen City in Buffalo, New York. I just listened to it and thought, well, at least back in the day when people actually had an angle, had a shtick, had a gimmick where everyone's show sounded different, unlike today where from shift to shift and station to station, I can't tell the difference between any of them. They all sound the same to me.
Well, when rock and roll really kicked in, WKBW actually was the 50,000 watt station, 1520 that went up and down the eastern seaboard. But WKBW was one of the places where the new hit song would go there first, because that station would beam it all up and down the country. It did Danny Nebrith,
Sure.
Shane Brothers Shane. I mean, it's some great. I mean, that was a great radio station.
Hey, Brian, thanks so much for joining us here on the show today. I said we're basically brand new. We're probably a month and a half into this, something that we really wanted to do and get a chance to talk to people we hadn't talked to before. And this is just really a part of it. So the fact that you took an early part of your day to join us here from Las Vegas, we certainly appreciate it. And I would love to have you on again if you're ever available.
I don't know if I chipped in any way, shape, or form, but you're off to a hot start because I'm sitting on my patio, and today is going to be the hottest day ever in Las Vegas. It's supposed to be 117 today.
Ooh.
I did the show with 2 feet in the pool eating a popsicle.
Nice.
Love it.
There we go. Yeah, you fit right in with us. That's what we call the gym, what you just did there today. Awesome.
Oh, yeah, I love the gym. I walk really fast by treadmill.
Hey, Brian, you take care. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
All right, guys.
That is Brian Blessing joining us here from Las Vegas this morning. He is the host of Sportsbook Radio and the Vegas Hockey Hotline on AM 1400 in Las Vegas, and that obviously one of the towns, one of the places that we want to get to. And it was nice having him on the show this morning.
What? Did we just become best friends?
Yep.